Hello and welcome back to the Holistic Pharmacy podcast. I have with me today a very special guest. She's from Canada and she is the first holistic pharmacist up there. She is a specialist in longevity and many other holistic and herbal endeavors, as I'm sure she'll tell us. So please welcome RoseMarie Pierce.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome. So excited to dive deeper into your journey. So, why don't we first start with where you grew up and how you came to be a pharmacist?
So my pharmacy career really started in Nova Scotia. I'm an East Coaster. I was born in Halifax, and sorry, my printer was going. It was taking my attention. Born in Halifax in 1949, actually. And it was when I was 8 years old that I chose to be a pharmacist. And that was because somehow I didn't feel like every other little girl that did everything that every other little girl did in the 1950s. And so I didn't want to be a teacher or a nurse. That was the typically what little girls would say when in school. So I have a Dutch mother who was a war bride, came over in 1947. So she had a broader view and she was quite equal to my dad. In that sense, which I think was great. They were a good team. They worked together. They shared everything, and they were centered around their three children. And all three of us are now in the natural health industry. My two brothers are entrepreneurs and have large companies, and I have my own company. I work as a consultant. But going back to that time at 8 years old, my mom gave me a number of other possibilities. And probably about the fourth, fifth, somewhere in there, she suggested pharmacist. Now, I didn't know what a pharmacist was at 8 years old. Wasn't in my vocabulary. We lived in the country. So I asked her and she explained it, and I went, well, that's different enough. It's not like what every other little girl wants to be. That would have been in the back of my thoughts and part of my motivation. But I think there was actually something, as I look back, something else working through me that intuitively knew this was a good path. And I almost continuously stuck to that. I varied a bit when I did a bit of modeling when I was 17. I was part of a 17 club and did modeling and loved it. I loved the energy, but when I really read about modeling, it was too focused on the external for me. It just didn't grab me. So I continued on and went to Dalhousie University in Halifax, which there are 10 colleges of pharmacy connected with prestigious universities in Canada. And Dalhousie University College of Pharmacy serves mostly the Maritimes, but we also, even at that time, had foreign students in our program. I took 4 years. I did a fourth year. At that time, it was a 3-year degree program. Still very tough, as we pharmacists all know how tough pharmacy is. But I did a fourth year, and that fourth year, it's the fourth year course is a research. So it's lab work, working on drugs. I was invited to do it on storefront clinics. So there was at that point a storefront clinic in which I was involved in as a student pharmacist in the poorer area of Halifax, and it was run by a committee of locals, and it was overseen by medical staff, but serviced mostly by students. and I was the pharmacist. Matter of fact, the locals called me the drug pusher, very
Oh,
with a big chuckle. Anyway, I did that as a student program over a couple of summers, and then was asked if I would do this 4th-year thesis course on that, which I did. And it actually set me up for being recommended for a clinical program. And now this is 1972. So you probably weren't even born yet, right?
right.
And so in 72, at the College of Pharmacy in Halifax, they were just starting clinical pharmacy. And it ended up being down to 2 people, myself and actually the president of our student body, a he and a she. And
Uh-huh.
they kept us waiting for quite a while, and finally chose the he. And when I talked to one of my professors who was part of that committee, I said, just by any chance, was that because with your first program, you thought you might have a better chance with a male? And sure enough, it was at that time. And if you think of where people were in the 1970s, it would make sense. If everything was equal, that would be the deciding factor. As it so happened, he never continued in clinical pharmacy. And for me, it set me up for community pharmacy. And I'm really glad that it did, because if I would have gone that route, I probably would have stayed working in hospitals. And I really belonged with people. And I can see I wasn't too disappointed, because I had a job waiting for me, and it was a wonderful roughly 25-year career, just as dispensing. I kept a license for about 25, 30 years before I realized that I was totally committed to holistic.
Wow, amazing. So many little details I'd like to go back to in that story. So, first of all, are you the eldest or are your brothers older than you?
No, I'm I'm the oldest,
Okay, so you
which
were kind
that's
of you were paving the way then, all 3 of you ended up in natural medicine and I'm sure
yeah,
they looked up to you.
yeah. It was we've worked all three of us have worked together quite a bit over the years. I've supported them, especially with my credentials and research knowledge, but they've supported me from the business end, because they've been driven as entrepreneurs. So they've given me platforms and lots of opportunities to share what I know.
Amazing. I love when siblings work together like that. And it seems like your parents also set you up to kind of think outside the box and be different and not have the same dreams as everyone else and like set you up to stand out right away.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say that was very much so. If I was programmed, it was programmed for success. I heard it. I'm lucky. You're going to achieve, right? So it was a program, a good one in a sense. Yeah, yeah. And
Definitely.
I think the key to my brothers and my success has been how much our parents cared for us, how we were the center of their world, and we knew it. It was a safe environment. There was a lot of trust and a feeling of safety within my growing up.
Yeah, that is the foundation not only for success, but also for good health and good relationships and a lot
Mhm.
of love, I just feel it. So
Yeah.
that's really great to hear. And another thing I wanted to kind of ask about is how is pharmacy school structured now in Canada? Because a lot of the listeners are probably used to the US model where right now it's either 2 and 4 program or a total of 6 years, and you get your doctor of pharmacy at the end, which is pretty much equivalent to a master's degree, but it's that doctorate in our field. So how is it structured in Canada?
You know, I'm not as involved in the academic end of pharmacy, but I believe it's close to the same, that you have to have at least 2 years of your B.Sc, Bachelor of
Mhm.
Science, right? Um, Even preferred to have the degree and then the 4 years. Yeah.
Okay.
At the time for me, it was, I went directly from high school. And it was really, you had to have quite high marks. That was the big um, sort of entrance at that point.
Okay, nice. So tell me what you found when you started working in community and what you learned over those 25 years and how you kind of transition into that holistic model of care.
Well, actually, my transition was a very slow. It started with when I was in university. When I was in university, in my second year, a professor came who was a Ph.D. in pharmacognosy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you know what pharmacognosy is, but a lot of pharmacists still that I've talked to don't know, younger pharmacists, that it's really the study of the active ingredients in herbs. He came out of the Prairie provinces, University of Saskatoon, and I would imagine because he was quite young, he had finished his PhD, came, and so we had good amount of studies in nutrition, vitamins, minerals, and herbs. So he taught, and I loved those courses. When I look back in it, of course, I was inundated with all of it. But when I really see where I excelled, it was in those studies. Then, so that was my background for 3 years. Then when I went into my first full-time job, I had all my preceptorship finished. I was quickly licensed. I had my Canadian board exams. I actually think I was a little bit egotistical about that. I felt like I was really on top of my game. I was working in downtown Halifax, which has 5 universities surrounding it. So it's a very much, and remember, this is yuppie time. This is the baby boomers. I'm in that first wave of the baby boomers, and lots of university students really with it. I was working at downtown Halifax, very close to Dalhousie, and I was getting asked for things I didn't know. So they were coming in. Now, this will sound very weird, I'm sure, but they were coming in for lecithin granules.
Mm.
Now, in 1972-73, not many people would have known lecithin granules, or they wanted magnesium oxide powder. You know, there were different things they were asking for. And I'm going, okay, so what is it you want these for? Well, we're making pep up drinks. Where are you finding about pep up drinks? And there were books by a nutritionist called Adele Davis. And anybody that's been around as long as I have will know the books of Adele Davis. Let's eat right. Let's eat right for our children. But Let's Eat Right was her title. So Adele Davis was putting out these books, which actually were in paperback on my magazine rack.
Wow.
Yeah. So once I heard about them, I went to my own paperback rack, picked up a couple of her books, picked up Linus Pauling, Vitamin C in the Common Cold, which was just becoming well known, the Shute Brothers with Vitamin E, looking at cardiovascular health. And so I started reading these, and it really thrilled me, actually. I remember my key phrase at that time was, wow, if you can do it with a vitamin rather than a drug, much better off. That's the conclusion. I actually remember reading them with my husband of the time on a beach in Nova Scotia, and just looking up to him and saying, oh my goodness, right? If you can do this, this is so much better. So what happened is I started talking to all of my customers that were, let's say, ordering large dose vitamin C.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and I started to be known as the pharmacist that was sympathetic towards nutrition and vitamins. That brought the attention of, somehow that got around. Halifax isn't that big of a place. And there was a schizophrenic society in Nova Scotia that head office was in Halifax, actually quite close to where I was working in downtown Halifax. And the president of that society had a schizophrenic son, and many of them, of course, that were on that would have been a volunteer board, had children that were schizophrenic and maybe some bipolar, but at that point, it was mostly schizophrenia that I would hear about. And they were sending their children down to the States, into New York, probably close to where you are, to a doctor called Dr. Alan Cott. Now, he was an have you heard of him at all, Marina?
I'm not sure, actually. Kind of.
Yeah, look him up.
Yeah.
Allan, I believe, Cott, C-O-T-T. He's written one book. I believe it's A-N, might be E-N. He was a peer of Dr. Hoffer.
Okay.
Abraham Hoffer, right?
Yeah.
So these are the schizophrenic doctors. They're psychiatrists. I'm sorry, the orthomolecular doctors that are psychiatrists, but that are working with high dose, at that time, vitamin Bs, vitamin C, were typical of what they would be prescribing, especially niacin. Now, the other thing in the 1970s, let's say mid 70s, you could not buy more than 125 milligrams of vitamin C unless you had a prescription.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Yeah, so that's why I would see these people taking high dose Bs or Cs coming in, because they had to, and they actually had to give me a script. And when I had the script, I could then order it.
Okay.
So
it
I
was
couldn't
international
stock.
script?
Pardon?
Was the script from the US? So it was an international?
No. If it was a script for any drug, anything that was controlled or what we call Schedule 1, it had to be written by a Nova Scotia doctor.
Okay.
But it's amazing. I could not tell you where on the schedules were these high dose vitamins, but they were definitely controlled and to more than a regular drug.
Wow. Amazing.
So yeah, isn't that amazing when you think about it? How tightly they had these nutrients under their control. So so people would bring vitamin prescriptions in, and I would order it. They would come back for it. Now, as far as these, the Schizophrenic Society with their trips down to New York, they would get Dr. Alan Cott to write a prescription, which would then come back and be co-signed by a Nova Scotia doctor. Then I could order it. So what they had asked is, would I do this for them? Would I work with them? They'd heard of my inclinations, and I said, sure. So I did that. And then what happened over a period of a year, they had organized a conference to bring Dr. Alan Cott up to have a talk. And it was held in a lecture theater at the university. And they asked me to give a talk on a pharmacist perspective of this. So that was my first big lecture.
Wow.
and talk about nervous. Like, I'm 23, 24, I think at the time. Yeah, yes. And I put huge amount of research into that, which took me to another level of understanding of orthomolecular therapy. And by the way, the same thing happened with the different vitamin Bs. For example, niacinamide, it was a low dose again. I think it may even have been less than 100 milligrams. But if the 500 milligrams used by these orthomolecular therapists definitely had to be on prescription.
Wow.
So yeah, so I was kept busy. And I often at that time, I remember being asked, aren't you an oxymoron? Because they didn't think pharmacists and natural medicine went together. Thank goodness things have changed.
Yes.
Right. And so nice to know that there are more holistic pharmacists, that there's functional medicine. If I was on the beginning end of my career, I would definitely go and add that on as a specialty. I would also probably take pharmacognosy as a specialty. I don't know if you're aware that there are very few universities that offer pharmacognosy now.
No,
As a program. It might be, is it University of Philadelphia? It's been a while since I've looked it up. Do they have a College of Pharmacy?
yes, we do.
Yeah, I think it's there. But if you look it up, it is a set program, and I believe it's only one, maybe two universities in all of North America that offer this now.
Wow. Well, I do know the University of Philadelphia offers a cannabis master's program.
Oh, wow.
That's
Well, it would make sense then that they also have pharmacognosy, because
it would.
that's hand in hand. It was Dr. Frank Chandler, Ph.D., who was quite well known. That was the professor that was the Ph.D. in pharmacognosy. And I believe he is still alive, at least a year ago when I looked him up, still living in Halifax.
Wow, good for him.
Yeah. So now I'm on the West Coast. I held a license in Nova Scotia. I held one also in Alberta. I was in Nova Scotia for 28 years. I also taught compounding after I graduated for a number of years. They asked me to come back and be in the compounding lab as a lab assistant, and we pretty well ran that compounding program. And then I went to Alberta. I was there for 28 years, kept a license, had my children, and then left. And now I'm on the West Coast. I've been here for it'll be 16 years. Yeah, 16 years soon.
Amazing. So I've actually come across a lot of Canadian, both pharmacists or like products that are naturally sourced, natural, like how do you call it? Nutraceuticals, I guess. Nutraceuticals from Canadian-based companies. So I feel like Canada is actually one of the countries that does a lot of research and does a lot of naturopathic sort of practices. So would you say that's true, or have you noticed that trend increase? Because it sounds like it wasn't very popular when you started your studies, but now there's a lot more access.
There's a huge natural health products industry, which I've been a part of since the 80s. So in the 80s, and of course, there's where my brothers are entrepreneurs. One has a national company called Prairie Naturals, started when we were in Calgary, in the prairies, in Alberta. And my other brother is a private label manufacturer. And so I'm very involved, and that's where I'm probably best known. Is within the natural health industry, with people who work in health food stores, who are trained. Some of them are naturopaths. I love training naturopaths. We have a lot of natural pharmacies that both dispense, sometimes they also compound, and they carry whole natural sections. So it is quite an industry in Canada. And one area that has been of great interest to me is researching a particular condition and then looking how to formulate for that. So I've done a lot of formulating, and right now actually this is just in the beginning stages, but I'm working with two other women, and the three of us are looking at how to integrate our research knowledge. One of these women is a researcher. She's an MD and PhD university, working university. So she has even more academic background than I do, but I'm quite knowledgeable in the natural health industry, the nuts and bolts of that. And another woman that holds more of the business end with us. So the three of us are looking at how do we develop and raise the standards within Canada, and also up the research based and Canadian, local Canadian products. Because I think that's what we're missing is, and I believe all North America is missing that, to have more of our raw materials come from North America, especially US and Canada. For example, I formulated a product for people who do not have gallbladders, right? So it has ox bile and pancreatic enzymes, pancreatin in it. It took me years and years before I could make that product because I could not find USDA certified, certainly not Canadian, but USDA certified ox bile extract and pancreatin. They came from Mexico or China. And so I wouldn't make it. I wouldn't make it if I couldn't find USDA and US raw material. So, and luckily about 4 years ago I did, and that's become a very popular formula, and I'm very proud of it because of the research and the not lowering my standards, so that I would actually have the good quality raw material.
Yeah, that's certainly important in terms of sustainability and ethically sourcing products as well. So,
Yeah, and the purity, the guarantee of purity, because with animal products, there's such a potential for things to go off, especially if they come from maybe questionable sources. Not necessarily is everything from China or Mexico questionable, but I tend to want to buy Canadian first, US second, and only when forced to go outside of those two. Yeah.
yeah, I respect that. So, can I ask, it seems like you have kind of naturally progressed and accepted opportunities that came your way and, just continued on with the momentum. And so, were you really starting to do your own research, and because you started to see the benefits of these alternative vitamin therapies and you started to believe and put weight into it? Like, how did that passion arise for only focusing on natural products after a while?
Well, I think one piece in there is there was a natural health college in Alberta called Wild Rose um, College, and Wild Rose happened to be right in the town Calgary that I lived. Um, and there's another piece to this, and that is, at that time my children were young, and I helped found a Waldorf school. Are you familiar with
Yeah.
Waldorf schools? Yeah, because they are definitely, I've been in upper New York State to Sunbridge College. I've done courses there. I've been over and in the West Coast in Sacramento with the anthroposophical pharmacy there. So And that came after I found Waldorf education. So Waldorf education brought in this city, which was less than 1 million people at that time. It's a couple million now, but before it really expanded. But it was still a big city in the sense that it's not like small town.
Yeah.
But within that, this development of the school, which I was part of founding in that would have been 1984 when my oldest was 5. So when she was 5 and my youngest was 3, I was looking for education that matched sort of my inner values. And when I read about Waldorf education, it was immediate lights on. Oh my goodness, this is it. And there happened to be a fledgling group with a kindergarten and a sort of a Waldorf influence kindergarten who were looking towards putting a school together. So we did, and first year had a split grade 1, grade 2. By the second year, we had 3 classrooms. What that did is it brought the holistic community together.
Mm.
So it was, for me, it was as if I was with friends, parents, because you have to be very involved as a parent in a school, especially a beginning school like this. And in my daughter's class was the son of the founder, Terry Willard, a very well-known herbalist, Ph.D. herbalist, who had Wild Rose College. So we were kind of a small town community in a big city. And that was really valuable for me. So I was, I got swept into that easily. And over 1989 to 92, I did my master's in herbology, the advanced course 3 times, once myself, and then twice I took through pharmacists through it who were interested. So that really grounded me. It grounded me in aromatherapy, which was very new in the 1990s, was not well known the way it is now, in herbology, in nutrition, and really set the stage for me to be able to support my brothers as they developed their companies and go into formulation. But the formulation led to me really being involved in educating people. So it gave me a platform for talking to retailers and also doing public talks. And that was easy for me because if I was formulating something for eye health, I really studied the eyes. Right? I went into the anatomy, the physiology, the drugs, and then all the natural supplements or raw materials really that had science behind them. So it set a number of years for me to explore just about every area. As it turns out, the area that really grabbed me the most was the body's acid-base balance.
Mm.
So pH, right? And because I found that whenever I was working up a PowerPoint in a presentation, I always had to have a piece on pH balance in there, whether it was arthritis or osteoporosis, or no matter what subject it was, anti-aging, there was always a piece in there. And finally I went, now, wait a minute, maybe I should reverse this and talk about pH and then the effects on the different areas of the body. Mm-hmm. And so to this day, I still give courses on that. As a matter of fact, coming up with Pacific Rim College, which is where my educational aspect really, I get to explore that in depth. I'm giving seven and a half hour lecture at the or workshop actually at the end of February, for the last Saturday in February, for Pacific Rim College for their holistic nutrition program as an elective.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then the next Saturday, March 6th, and this is all available through my links. So if people are interested, because they're accredited courses towards the holistic nutrition program. And Pacific Rim College actually has, it's got an award-winning 3-year holistic nutrition program. And now with COVID, the advantage to that is almost all of it is online. Right. So almost all of it is, they don't have to physically go the way I used to the college to give these.
That's great. Yeah. Every cloud has a silver lining, eh?
No, no kidding. Yeah, yeah, very much so. And it is to be able to, I think it's a real art to be able to find those and to allow those to blossom instead of the downsides of things and what causes worry and stress. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. It's such an important reminder for all of us.
Right. Yeah.
So what's like your favorite part, or I know you mentioned pH and acid-base balance. Is that, do you think, your centerpiece thesis if you had to, condense like one main idea that holds health together? Or what's that missing link for the big health picture?
Yeah, good question. Actually, I would say that, but what I think the piece that I offer that is not often solidified is how that it relates with digestion.
Mhm.
Because internally, we want our body pH to be slightly alkaline,
Mhm.
depending on which body fluid we're talking about. If it's the blood, it's very narrowly regulated between about 7.45 to just roughly in that range. It can vary a little bit more in different internal body fluids, but it always should be on that alkaline side. And of course, the urine is a good indicator of what's going on, especially with the blood, because of the effects of the kidneys. So of course, pH has a huge effect on the kidneys. And as a pharmacist, we understand the importance of the kidneys and the health of the kidney because of how drugs take such a toll on the kidney function. So one of my premises is that working with pH and staying out of that alkaline or into that alkaline state and out of an acidic pH supports kidney health, whether you're on medications or not. With age, it's more difficult. Kidney function goes down, as we know. So that is a very important aspect. Now, just to go back to my original, where I said I believe I bring in something different, it's how there's a relationship between these internal body fluids and digestion. So there's and what I do within these two talks, because my first talk is called Acidity, Modern Diets and Degenerative Diseases. But the second workshop, which is the following Saturday, that March 6th, it's a natural prescription for supporting digestion and the body's alkaline acidic balance.
Mm.
I have to look at these titles because difficult to kind of grasp it. But what I'm doing is, as I'm building an understanding of pH, and I really go into the chemistry of fluids, body fluids, and electrolytes, because understanding that it's a building, understanding, what a proton is, and and how a proton is an acid, and building it right up to understanding the functions within the kidney. So it's quite in depth for these students. It's meant as part of their program, although public can also take these. It's not closed to them, but the students are the key ones that want this knowledge. And then on that second part, what I'm looking at is, okay, so if a person's eating right, what else is affecting, so that they're getting their alkaline minerals and their buffering agents, what else is affecting the internal body pH? And then how does the internal body pH affect the digestive system? And that is huge through stomach acid, because there's a direct relationship between how much stomach acid we actually can build up, needed to prepare minerals and vitamins for absorption, right? Because unless we can ionize minerals in our stomach acid, which is, we don't absorb most of them because they're in salt form, so they have to be separated, ionized, otherwise they're not absorbed. So the relationship between how proper amount of stomach acid, it depends on internal body alkalinity.
Wow.
So yes, and that's just one of many connections that happen between those two systems. It happens within the lymphatic system. There's just so many interrelationships there that you can't really separate them. Although one has to understand internal body pH and the importance of that and the effects. Because of course, one of the largest problems that we have with a long standing low-grade acidosis is osteoporosis. So any osteoporosis program that does not address the body's pH is missing the very foundation of it. So there's those aspects, but let's say that you are doing everything diet and supplement wise, but the pH is not adjusting, it's not changing, it's not becoming alkaline. Most likely it's the digestion.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And it's wonderful. I love it. I've been excited about it for years. I keep finding more pieces to this. Are you familiar with Dr. Linda Freschetto? I think she's a US nephrologist, Ph.D. I'm just trying to think of what university she's at right now. Might be, oh yes, it's University of California, the San Francisco campus.
No.
Okay, she's a wonderful researcher on pH and alkalinity, and buffering Freschetto, Frassato, I think is her last name. Yeah, she's quite a lady. I've been following her work for years. Actually, in Europe, they've had 3 acid-based symposiums with all of the work. It started in the early 2000s, maybe 2003, and they've had 2 since then. So getting all of their abstracts, and she's been a big has had big contributions towards that. So there are a group of PhD scientists just studying acid base and how it's affecting the body, looking at ancestral diets and many other aspects. So yeah, I just find that the research is continuing, and it's wonderful to have a platform to share that information.
Yeah, amazing. So is that why the proton pump inhibitors have that side effect long term of causing osteoporosis or contributing to it, because they're suppressing stomach acid production?
Yes. Stomach acid should be between 1 and 3. If we take PPIs daily, stomach acid never goes below 4. And so there are two big aspects there. One is we're not having enough stomach acid to ionize these alkaline minerals found in our food or supplements. And the other aspect would be that without stomach acid, we now are shutting down the most or the optimal use of our liver gallbladder juices and our pancreatic juices. Remembering that bile is is alkaline. It has buffers in it, and pancreatic juices is alkaline as well. And they come in and deposit through the common bile duct these acid neutralizing juices based on the amount of acid that we have in our stomach. If stomach does not have a lot of acid, the message does not get to these two important aspects of our digestive system in order to produce the juices and then allow the proper amount that would then also bring along with it bile and our pancreatic digestive enzymes. So digestion is suppressed. So not only are we suppressing the ability to ionize our minerals, but we're also affecting the proper digestion of food. So what would you say is, if food is not properly digested, what would you say is the most common sign of that?
Probably your stool. You could see undigested particles.
And constipation.
And constipation, yes.
Because undigested proteins and undigested carbohydrates form paste. So without a diet of copious amounts of fluid, and even with that, you're still not breaking down these partially digested proteins in the form of peptides or carbohydrate macromolecules. And if we think, what I usually refer people to is think about taking flour and water. And what do we have if we mix them? Paste. It's the most common form of making paste. So one of the key areas that people are not recognizing is that they have low digestive ability if you have low stomach acid. So that means that food's not being broken apart. That means more nutrients are not properly released from those foods. And so an area that I've done a lot of research has been in hydrochloric acid supplementation. How can you support the body? And also in digestive enzymes. So that's another area. And of course, that ties into longevity, because without proper absorption of nutrients, how do you reproduce healthy cells? Yeah.
Yeah. And why does stomach acid naturally decline as we age?
Well, I would say that there are two major factors. And one is, as I said, tied back to an acidic body. And of course, an acidic body is based on poor diet. But another factor that affects poor diet is stress. Right? Because what happens when we're under stress, whether it be an immediate flight or fight or chronic long-term, is digestion reduces. Blood supply goes away from digestion. Digestive enzymes, hydrochloric acid is not produced. Now, and if the diet's poor, if it's a typical devitalized, not alkaline diet, full of acid forming foods. And usually those would be proteins such as animal proteins, dairy, high in phosphorus, high in sulfuric acid. I'm not saying they should not be in the diet, but obviously they should be of really good quality and not dominant in the diet. And then poor amounts of fruits and vegetables, which provide these alkaline minerals. If we do not have a source of alkaline minerals, the body does not have a reservoir that's there, except to take it from a small amount from organs and tissues, and then to actually deprive the bones, right? So it all really ties in to, so to go back to answer your question, it's stress, poor diet, both causing an acidic body and reducing digestive processes, starting with stomach acid and then our ability to produce digestive enzymes.
Yeah.
So it's a vicious cycle, really. And understanding that is really I would say, a big part of what I try to offer as an understanding of the connections between what we eat, our stress levels, and our internal body fluids.
Wow, I love that. The body has its own wisdom and it knows what to do to balance itself out, but we find ways to mess it up anyway. Anyway, RoseMarie, I had such a great time talking to you, and I learned so much just from this 1 hour with you. Your journey was just amazing. I think we could talk for a few more hours. But we're running out of time, and I'd like to ask just a few quick rapid round questions. Are you up for that?
Sure.
All right. So what's that number one missing piece that we can do to improve our whole alkaline acid-base balance and improve everything that we just talked about?
Take your urine pH regularly. So monitor your pH through your urine, given that it reflects the blood, because once you do a home pH test with very sensitive pH paper, one that would go between 5.5 to 8, for example. You don't want the full scale that we would have used in university. You want pH sensitive paper within that range. Do the urine because it's so demonstrative. It will give a reading. And if you're continually below that 6.4, especially leaving that paper yellow, which would be a 5.5 type range, that directly tells you that you're low in alkaline minerals, you do not have enough buffering agents, and your body's in breakdown mode, not buildup. So, because the body needs to keep, it's always in a negative, always trying to make that up. So taking your pH, and I do it regularly, because it keeps me motivated if my pH goes off. If you do the pH first thing in the morning, and actually on my website, I think I still have how to properly monitor your pH. So when you supply my connections, people can get to that, or they can email me and ask for it. But that pH is a way right at home. In the morning, if you look at it, you know that the day before your pH was off. So I think we need direct, not somebody telling us, but something that directly demonstrates it.
So could like one meal offset it, and then you could just reset it the next day if you eat right?
Well, remember that we should be building up alkaline reserves so that we could accommodate that. Basically, what you're doing is doing it every day and then seeing a pattern. And then if the pattern goes off, for example, let me see, about 6 years ago, I got a whole body vibration machine, and I was really working this machine. So I was exercising a lot, and my pH went off. But it took me some time to go, oh, that's what shifted. And then I had to accommodate that. Now that I'm in my 70s, I recognize that if I don't take magnesium at night, I often am off. So
Wow.
I take a very alkaline magnesium at night, and actually an ionized magnesium for good absorption. So if I drop my magnesium, I do a lot of magnesium. I do magnesium usually in the morning and also with meals. But if I drop off that, I'm going to notice a difference in it. So yeah, but that pH paper doesn't lie. Sometimes I have people, Marina, call me and they'll say, my pH paper must be too old because it's always yellow. It can't be. It must be like, and it's like, unless water has ended on your pH paper, no, it's you, not the paper. Yeah. So that would be my, based on that question, it would be get pH paper and see for yourself whether your body has enough alkaline minerals and buffering agents.
Wow, amazing. So what is the optimal range, did you say?
6.4 to 7.4.
Okay. But
Yeah.
where we want it to be like closer to the 7.4?
It depends. If you could aim for that 7, as long as you hit the 6.4 and get used to what affects your body's pH. If you go out a couple nights during the week or a couple of evenings on the weekend and drink alcohol, and your pH on Monday morning is into the yellow, into that 5.5 range, you might go, okay, I've got to do more to work against the alcohol effects the next morning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really empowering. Like you don't have to go anywhere and get tested. You can just go get the kit and test it in the convenience of your bathroom
Exactly.
and get empowered to make different choices the following day.
Right. And it is important to do it first urine of the morning. As I said, I have this whole sheet where I line it up so that a person can do it properly. But if you're able to do that first morning and not be getting up in the middle of the night to urinate, that's the best. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so now I just have a couple of fun questions. What's your favorite hobby?
Oh, fiber arts. Anything in fiber arts. I have been doing needlework and knitting since I've been 5. Having a Dutch mother, that was a big part. And what I do mostly now is knit. But I knit with very colorful textured wools. I don't try to do complicated patterns. I'm using it like meditation and for the love of fiber and color. So yeah, it would be fiber arts. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love to see some pieces next time.
Yeah, I have one. It's over in the next room. Just a minute. I'm going to get it.
Oh.
You've got me all excited here.
Yeah, I see you're like a very fashion forward woman. I love what you have on.
Oh yeah, I'm actually very much into color. It just so happens, even though I love many colors, and you'll see my colors change based on the season. I'll change these actually are prints that my husband's grandmother did. She
Wow.
was quite an artist.
Yeah.
And but they change, and so do I. This is the back of a sweater.
Yeah, this is beautiful. I love it.
And
Yeah,
you can
aquamarine today.
right. Yeah, it just so happens. This is one of my color palettes, but this particular sweater is done with 3 different yarns. So I'm I get to switch it up and I get to see how the colors develop. And it's got texture and it's all natural. These are
Beautiful.
wools. Yeah.
You got another
So,
career lined up for you.
well, actually, when we formed the Waldorf School, I was actually a paid handwork teacher for 5 years.
There you go.
Teaching grade 1 to 5, knitting, crochet, beading, leather work. Yeah, I
Oh,
did. I loved it. That was, I could be right with my kids. That's when I didn't practice pharmacy, was during those years.
cool. Okay, my next and last question is, what's your favorite beverage to drink?
Uh, well, I would have to move toward an alkaline beverage. And I do that because I do this as a combination of a drink that I formulated years ago, 20 years ago, based on lemons. My mom always squeezed the juice of half a lemon and had it with water every morning. And when
Mm.
I asked her why she did that, as I was formulating based on that, she just knew it was good for her. And for hundreds of years, people have known that lemon, it provides alkaline minerals, it provides buffering agents in the form of citric acid. So I actually used that, found an organic compliant lemon made for baby food in Europe, combined it with alkaline citrate-based minerals, and made an alkaline drink. So I will either use the lemon or move to my more powerful alkaline drink called Morning Rise and Shine. And then I add in apple cider vinegar. I'll add in green powders and red powders with polyphenols in them.
Mm.
So I'll use superfoods along with the alkaline drink, and add in extra, because lemons and apple cider vinegar both provide these little organic acids, which I know if there are many pharmacists listening, they'll know what an organic acid is, but these little tiny acids we find in citrus and other fruits and vegetables, especially acidic fruits, that transfer in the body. The kidneys use them to make bicarbonates. And that's part of what I teach in that course at Pacific Rim College, is about citrates and these organic acids and how to use them. So yeah, very different than your last guest. I actually listened to your interview and hers was water.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting. I was thinking, wow, are we the pure water has to be the basis. And I put that in probably, 18 or 20 ounces of pure, good quality filtered water. So absolutely, it's hydration and alkalization that I'm keen on.
Wow. Well, you are one well-read and very healthy lady. So thank you so much. And why don't you also tell our listeners how they can get in touch directly with you and maybe sign up for that course?
Well, there are two ways. My link tree would be a good one because it lists everything there, my social media, my articles, and also these courses. So it's Linktree, which is of course linktr.ee / I guess it is RoseMarie, MARIE .Pierce, PIERCE. So that's where the most complete of everything would be. But my website is also, and by the way, I don't know if you did this, but if you type in Holistic Pharmacist, I come up first.
I think that's exactly how I found you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's holistic-pharmacist.com is my website. So you can get to me through there. You can link to my Instagram, which will then bring my link tree up. So it's a roundabout, but the first page of my website have these courses listed, as well as my totally online course, because of course these courses are online, but they're one time only. They're live. But I do have a drugs deplete nutrients and nutrient drug herb interaction 10-hour course online, which some pharmacists from the States have actually taken it. It's quite wonderful. And it's listed. You can get to that one as well. That's another area I've spent a lot of time, is how drugs affect nutrients and how they deplete nutrients.
Yeah, such an important area.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I hope pharmacists out there are realizing that there's a lot more to learn, even though we already learned a lot in school. And I hope that they reach out to you with any questions, and they could always ask me. So please don't hesitate to connect and build a community around this natural and a holistic way of doing pharmacy. So thank you again so much for being on the show. And I definitely want to keep in touch and maybe take some of your courses.
Well, Marina, it would be my pleasure. And thank you so much for having me.
Take care. Bye bye.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.